Chapter 25. The Girl Who Didn't Know Her Destiny. Virgil covered his ears. He pressed his palms against them until it hurt. His heartbeat moved from his chest to his head, and yet the rustling was still there, louder somehow. The sound of ruffled feathers managed to soar above everything. The thump, the thump, the thumping of his heart, and the huff, huff, huff through his nostrils. But he refused to open his eyes. He couldn't anyway, because they were glued shut. His eyeballs ached, the apples of his cheeks, too. His whole face had been balled into a knot and tightened. No, he couldn't look. He wouldn't. The wings moved again. Were they closer? They felt closer. Was that a feather on his cheek, or... He flinched, the same way he did when teachers called on him, even though he hadn't raised his hand. "Can you tell us the answer, Virgil?" they'd ask, looking right at him. He shook his head. No, no, no. "What is the solution? Does anyone know? Virgil?" One time in Miss Murray's class he had said in a low, low voice exactly what he was thinking. But I didn't raise my hand. "Sometimes life calls on you even when you don't raise your hand," she'd said. The wings were bigger now, he could tell. They were spreading, tips touching opposite sides of the well, taking up all the space that he and Gulliver couldn't manage to fill. Pa, when would he feel the talons? "Open your eyes," a voice said. "That's the solution." The voice wasn't his. It was coming from inside the well, through his hands and heart and failed breaths. It was embodied, as if from beyond. It was a girl's voice, one he'd never heard before. Virgil opened his mouth, dry like parched grass, to say, "Who said that?" But he wasn't sure he'd actually said anything until she replied, "Me." The voice breezed through the well like steam drifting from a cup of hot chocolate. Virgil pushed himself back against the wall as far as he could. "I don't want to open my eyes," he said. This time he was sure he'd spoken aloud. "The more scared you are, the bigger Pa gets," the girl said. "Besides, he's not as bad as you think. Most things aren't." She sounded so calm that Virgil almost believed her. She reminded him of Lola, even though she was just a girl. But where had she come from? He wasn't certain of much, especially not now, but he knew there hadn't been a girl in the well when he'd climbed down. "I don't believe in ghosts," he said, even though that wasn't true at all. "Me neither," the girl replied. He realized now that his breathing had calmed and he couldn't hear Pa anymore, but he still didn't want to open his eyes. What if Pa was staring back at him, widening his enormous beak? "He won't be," said the girl. "Trust me." How did she know what he was thinking? "I hear by seeing," she replied. Virgil unscrewed his face. His hands were making his ears sweat, but he didn't dare uncover them. He opened his eyes instead, slowly, slowly. Darkness, more darkness, but no pointed beak, no feathers, no talons, no paw. The well was just as it had been. His heartbeat slowed, still racing and ready for takeoff, but no longer desperate to crash through his chest. "See?" the girl said proudly. He moved his hands to his sides, slowly, slowly, and darted his eyes around in the dark. "Where are you?" he asked. It came out as a whisper. "I'm all around, can't you tell?" Yes, he could tell. His voice came from everywhere, like the well itself was speaking. "Wells can't talk," said Virgil. He placed his palm on one of the stones without moving any other part of his body. It felt like the well was breathing. "I can see that you're afraid, Bayani, but you needn't be." "How? How can you see?" "I see by listening." "My name isn't Bayani." "It is to me," the girl said. "Who are you?" "Ruby San Salvador." The name sounded vaguely familiar. "The girl who didn't know her destiny," she explained. "Remember?" Yes, he remembered, from Lola's story. "What are you doing here?" Virgil's voice was small. Pa had disappeared, for now. "Fulfilling my destiny," said Ruby. "Your destiny is to live in a well?" "No. My destiny is to help people in trouble." Virgil clutched his backpack. "Can you move the cover and help me up the ladder?" "Of course not. You need arms to move things." "Oh," said Virgil. Silence filled the well. Gulliver squeaked. I guess it's hopeless, whispered Virgil. Oh, Bayani, Ruby replied. Nothing is ever hopeless.